and it's officially 11 a.m. on East Coast time, which means it's time for our Conference Connect webinar with Aaron Schafer. We are so lucky to have Aaron from self-publishing because these are things not only that I hope you all are excited to learn about, but I will be taking notes as well because I am very excited to hopefully write a second book in what I believe you teased as a weekend. So I'm really excited to learn how I can do that along with so many other really cool things. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for hosting us. Yeah, I always hope that these trainings can be very action oriented for your audience and that they're able to, take decisive action afterwards on the things that we talk about today. So I'll share my slides and we'll get started here. So, how to write and publish your book, even if you haven't started yet. So here, this is one of the things that this is something that I think for a lot of people when they first get started, the thought of writing a book can be a pretty overwhelming one. It's one that at the very beginning, they are figuring out what angle do I want to take, if I'm going to share my story, how am I going to get it out there? Getting to the spot where you feel comfortable with exactly what you want to write, and then what's the process after I write it to publish it, to launch it, to actually reach an audience? Because so often we get overwhelmed by the totality of the full task instead of looking at bite-sized chunks. So I hope today gives you a little bit of confidence wherever you're at in the journey, whether you haven't even started writing yet, whether you're already partway into a draft, to make it a little bit more doable for the entire audience. So just really briefly, as a bit of an introduction, Ashley was mentioning, so Aaron Schafer from a small town, DeWitt, Michigan, a little bit north of the capital city of Lansing, best-selling author and vice president of sales and business development here at selfpublishing.com. And I always like to let people know I'm also the proud author of several partially completed books and have put together outlines spanning the course of 20 years. And the reason I share that is that for so many folks, I think that the journey to becoming an author can be a very winding one. It's one that can take a lot of time. There can be setbacks. There can be starts and stops along the way. There can be a lot of imposter syndrome, and that's extremely normal. That's extremely normal. For me, I felt the calling to write a book over the course of about 20 years, all the way back to college. I knew I wanted to write a book one day, and it took a bit. And so I'm hoping that today some of the lessons we talk about can help you accelerate your journey. This is my family briefly. This is my wife, Naomi, four amazing kids, Elizabeth, Emma, Sophie, and Andrew, all the way down from a rising second grader to a rising senior, about to have one go off to college. And for me, so much of the story of being an author is tied up in our story of life. So we're talking about whether it's writing a book in a weekend, whether it's actually having a successful launch on the back end. You can't take your job, your family, any of these other things that you have going on in your life, you can't write a book in a vacuum. It has to be done with your full life context together. Because for me, for the longest time, coming back to my story briefly, and then we're going to go into lesson number one, the thing that held me back for the longest time, and I'm curious if anyone else on this training can relate to this. For the longest time, I always told myself, I'm going to write a book one day. But it always lived on that someday island. It always was this thing I was going to do in the future, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And there was always a reason why now was not the time. I first got my first job and I need to get settled into my career. And then I was getting married. We had our first kid and, young child, totally the wrong time. It felt like I didn't have enough bandwidth in terms of my personal time. It also felt like a terrible time financially to take this project on because I knew if I did it, I wanted to do it well. I wanted to work with professionals, have a good editor, a good cover design, a good marketing strategy. And then we had a second kid and a third kid, and there was a career change in between there. And then my wife went back to nursing school. And there was always a reason why now was not the time. There was always a reason why now was not the time. And yet I knew that that was something that if I could just do it, it would make such a big impact on my ability to do so many other things, to speak at conferences, to get on podcasts, to build a bit of a personal brand, all these things that I really wanted to do. I know a lot of folks that if you're in this audience, you probably have that desire to build a speaking career, to get out there. And there's nothing better that you can do for yourself in that vein than a best-selling book. And yet, for so often, I just put it off. And so I'm curious if anyone listening can relate to that. And so what I want to do today is strip it all down and show you what it actually takes. What it actually takes to get this book written, get it launched, get it marketed, and actually leverage it on the back end so you can see the full path. Because if we're looking at Mount Everest, sometimes it can feel like this insurmountable task. And yet, if you just focus on getting to base camp, if you just focus on the first step, and you know that there's a plan to get the rest of the way, it can make it a little bit easier. So we're going to talk about three things today. We're going to talk about how to finish your rough draft in less than a month, and if you want to be an overachiever, how you could even do it in a single weekend. We're going to talk about how to build a comprehensive marketing and launch plan where you can get your book out to a wide audience and not just have it be a book that sits on Amazon, only sells 50 to 100 copies, mainly to family and friends, and then kind of dies on the vine. And then we're going to finally talk about how to leverage that successful launch to grow your audience, to grow your income, to grow your opportunities on the back end. And then if any of you are interested in what it might look like to work directly with selfpublishing.com on your project, if that's something you're interested in, I can answer questions on that front as well at the end. So let's dive into lesson number one, how to finish your rough draft in less than a month. The very first thing that we need to do if we're going to tackle this project of writing a book is we need to finalize your first book idea. And a lot of aspiring authors that I talk to have a rough sense of what they might want to write. Some people will have a rough idea, but they still need to crystallize it. For some authors I talk to, they have too many ideas. They've got 6 different books they might want to write one day, and it's really about figuring out which one do I start with first? Which one do I start with first? And so I always encourage aspiring authors to ask themselves a few questions to help finalize that first book idea. The first thing I would ask is, what topics do you feel most passionate about? That might sound like an obvious thing, and yet the things that you are most passionate about, whether that's talking to coaching clients, whether that's speaking from stage, whatever it is, if it's just conversations and friends, family, if there's people that come to you for advice on specific topics, what are those things that you feel most alive when talking about? That's going to give you a lot of power when you're actually in the writing process to not get stuck in the middle and never finish. What are those broken record conversations you find yourself having? If you are someone that works with clients, if you are someone that is currently speaking from stages, going out on a speaking tour, and people are coming up to you afterwards and they're asking follow-up questions, they want to go deeper on a specific topic, are there certain broken record conversations you find yourself always having? There might be a really good nugget of a book idea in there. If you're someone who's thought about writing fiction, this is something where we have authors, sometimes it's not a linear path. Sometimes I assume that someone is going to want to write about a certain topic, and yet they say, you know what I've always wanted to write actually is this, and it's something totally different than we ever expected at selfpublishing.com. We spoke, it's funny, at a real estate conference recently, a bunch of real estate investors. And I would have assumed most of the folks writing books there would have been something related to their business. It would have been about real estate investing. It would have been kind of a how-to guide. It would have been something along those lines. And yet we had folks writing memoirs. We had folks writing self-help. We did have folks writing about real estate. We had aspiring fiction authors. A couple people said, man, I've had this children's book I've wanted to launch for a long time. And so I always encourage folks, if you're thinking about doing something in the fiction realm, something in the children's book realm, what are the genres that you actually spend the most time reading yourself? You're going to be so much more better positioned to write in that genre if you're going down the fiction path. If you actually have deep genre knowledge, you know the tropes, you know the different plot devices that people like to see in that genre. And then if you are someone that already does have a certain amount of content out there in the world, it might be a blog, might be a YouTube channel, might be a podcast. Maybe you already do speaking engagements at conferences, at retreats. If you're putting content out there in the world, if you're active on social media, where do you typically get the most engagement? Where do you typically get the most engagement? These are great questions to ask yourself as you're trying to finalize that first book idea. For me, my book is called The Politically Homeless Christian. And I had a blog for a while, and it was something that touched on a lot of different topics, but it was all faith-based. And I found that the ones that got the most engagement was when I talked about that intersection of politics and faith in today's world. And it was not in a right-left paradigm. It wasn't trying to convince people of one thing or another. It was much more of, how are these intersecting? What does that look like? How can we do that better? How can we meet each other with grace and have more intellectual conversations versus demonizing the other side? How can we get away from polarization? How can we get back to a spot where we recognize the humanity in each other and just have discourse? And I found that when I was blogging about that topic in different ways, I got tons of engagement and realized maybe this is the topic for my first book. Maybe this is the topic for my first book. So asking yourself these questions is a great way to finalize that very first book idea. Now, once you do that, now it's time to get organized. It's time to get organized with your thoughts. And I have found there is nothing more helpful when organizing your thoughts than a mind map. And a lot of you maybe have done this in the past, whether it was for content creation, for a talk, for a video series you were making, maybe it was for a business. But a mind map, you start, if you're doing a book, with the central key idea of your book in the center of the page. You then are going to work your way out with what are going to be the main topics. What are some of the main ideas that I'm going to put forward in this book? And then from there, you're going to start working your way out. Okay, on this main topic, what are some of the stories I want to share? What are some of the facts? Maybe some of the research. Maybe there's some great quotes that you want to share that have always spoken to you on that different topic. For me, because it was faith-based, so there was Bible verses. And so having what are all the different things that could be related to this topic, and you just keep working your way out. Keep working your way out. Now, as you're doing this mind map, this is super important. This is not a time to self-censor. This is not a time to ask yourself, does this belong in, does this not? This is a brain dump. This is where you want to get all your ideas out on paper, and then you can decide down the road, does it make the final cut? Does that belong in the book? Right now, what we're doing is we're simply doing a brain dump and getting all of the information out of our head and onto paper. Now, once we've done that, now it's time to outline your book. And this is where you want to take time to group those ideas into chapters, figure out, okay, what belongs together? How can I make sure that this is a cohesive narrative throughout? You want to then define the order of your chapters. For some books, it becomes very obvious. If someone is writing a memoir, more of a narrative, and it's pretty easy to think about which order you want to deliver your content. For sometimes it takes a little bit more time to define the order of your chapters and figure out what is going to make the most sense as I go from one topic to the next to the next. How can I have good hooks at the end of each chapter that bring people into the next one and keep them reading? And defining the order of your chapters goes a really long way towards making your book really flow. Now, once you've done this, this is one of the things, the last piece here, this is one of the things that helped my writing process go so much faster to the point where you could get your book done in less than a month or in as short as a weekend. We have authors that actually do that, is repeating this process within each chapter. So I had a coach here at selfpublishing.com that I was working with when I was doing my book. And this is one of the things he encouraged me to do. He said, Aaron, before you write a single word in a chapter, go through the process of mind mapping that chapter. Take all the ideas you already know are going to go in chapter 1, and then just sit for a few minutes and ask yourself, what else? Anything else that belongs in that chapter? Any other good stories I want to share? Any other good facts, figures, any other, points I'm going to try to make? And then once you've done that, outline that chapter. I'm going to start with this story to set the table. I'm then going to go into this point followed by this, and just have a rough idea of where you're heading with your chapter before you start writing, and your writing will go so much faster. And I was amazed how much faster it went. I went from 20 years of spinning my wheels, attempting to write different books and never getting anywhere, to I actually got my rough draft written in just 2 weeks. In just 2 weeks. And so what I did, and this is something we're going to talk about here in a moment when you get that writing process, what I did was simply 2 to 3 hours a morning, 6 days a week for 2 weeks straight. And that worked for me. We have some people that want to go a little bit more slow and steady. And this is one of the areas I encourage people when you're in this writing phase is you need to do what works for you. You need to embrace how you're wired and what phase of life you're in. So when I say, hey, you could write it in as short as a weekend, for some of you, that might be very attractive and it might be absolutely what you should do. For some of you, doing a 2-week sprint and getting that thing done is exactly what you should do. For some of you, maybe it's more of, hey, I just want to commit to getting this thing done over the next 6 months or the next 3 months. And it's going to be a little bit more slow and steady. You need to embrace how you're wired, because one of the mistakes we make, I believe, as content creators is sometimes we'll hear something from one person and we try to project that onto our life experience in a way that isn't helpful, because they might just simply not be wired the same way we are creatively. They might not be wired the same way we are, or maybe they're in a different part of life. The person who is retired and this is the second career and all the kids are out of the house and they have 8 hours a day they can work on something. Very different than where I was with 4 kids, young at the time, wife in nursing school, in the middle of a global pandemic where I'm trying to work 45 hours a week from my basement and have the kids at home. And sometimes you have to figure out what's going to work for you. So I encourage you to embrace how you're wired. I would like you to ask yourself this question. Are you built for the sprint, or are you built for smooth and steady? Because everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's a little bit different. Some people I know a lot of authors that are smooth and steady. It's like every single day, Aaron, I am committed to writing at least 1,000 words. And I wake up and I've got my 45 minutes to an hour and I'm going to bang out at least 1,000 words. And that's what I do. And that's my writing rhythm. And I tried that for about 20 years. I tried smooth and steady, and I discovered I'm not built for smooth and steady. I'm built for the sprint. I'm pretty good under pressure. I'm pretty good if you give me a deadline. And so for me, I realized that I'm built for the sprint. So figuring out for yourself, how are you wired will go a long way towards you being able to actually craft a writing plan that will work. And then your ability to stick to it, embracing how you're wired. And then to avoid getting stuck, I want to give you a couple of ideas, a couple of tips and tricks. First, honor your writing plan. If you decide I'm going to do this I'm going to carve out a weekend. I'm going to take off a Friday. I'm going to have a 3-day weekend. I am eliminating distractions. I'm deleting any possible distracting apps from my phone. I'm closing down the tabs of my computer of Gmail and anything else that might distract me. And I'm just going. Then honor that writing plan. If you're going to do it for 3 hours a day for 2 weeks straight, honor your writing plan. If you're going to do it for 45 minutes a day, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, however many, and you're going to try to do it over the course of 3 months, 6 months, however long, once you have a plan, sticking to it and making the decision that your book is important enough, that is enough of a priority to treat your writing time like it's absolutely sacred. As if this is the most important doctor's appointment you have that you cannot miss. As if you're going to get fired from your job if you don't show up to your desk to write for those 45 minutes, for those 3 hours, for that weekend retreat. Honor your writing plan once you set it. Sometimes, for a lot of authors, it can actually be smart to write out of order, as funny as that sounds. You don't have to do this, but if you ever find yourself getting stuck, let's say you wrote your intro, you wrote chapter 1, you wrote chapter 2, and now chapter 3 is a bit of a bear, and you're just getting stuck in the mud a little bit. And yet you know exactly what you want to write for chapter 7. That one's easy. Go ahead and write chapter 7. There is nothing saying that you have to write in order. And then if you know exactly what you want to say for chapter 9, great. Bang out chapter 9. Because what happens is sometimes you get all those done, and then by the time you get back to chapter 3, you have so much momentum. You now have 13 of 14 chapters written. And now, when you're right there on that 5 yard line, it's so much easier to just let the momentum carry you across the finish line. And you might have more context as well. You might have more context where all of this writing you've done has unlocked what you want to say in chapter 3, and you have a better picture of how it fits as a part of the greater whole. Don't be afraid to start with the easiest chapter to write instead of simply doing it chronologically. And then here's the final thing: never edit while you write. This is one of our biggest rules here at selfpublishing.com. Never edit while you write, because so often authors make this mistake. They write chapter 1, they write chapter 2, they write chapter 3, and now they go back, and before they write chapter 4, they reread the first 3 chapters. They look for areas they want to improve, and all of a sudden, a couple things happen. One, imposter syndrome can start to sink in, and you say, "Oh my gosh, these are terrible. Like, what was I thinking that I could write a book?" And all of a sudden, you beat yourself up over this is not perfect, and perfectionism takes hold. And now all of a sudden, a couple weeks go by, you haven't written anything new. You're not exactly sure how you want to rework chapter 2 because you feel like it's clunky. And then a couple months becomes 6 months, becomes 2 years, becomes your book is on the back burner. I imagine a lot of us probably can relate to that story. Never edit while you write. Go ahead and get your rough draft done. And it's okay if your rough draft is rough. It's called a rough draft for a reason. You can go back and self-edit afterwards. But once you have your rough draft done, you're gonna have so much more momentum. You're gonna have that enthusiasm of, okay, I'm getting there. And now you can self-edit. And then in the hands of a talented editor, your content's gonna get that much better. This is what they do professionally. So never edit while you write. And if you do, you're gonna maintain a lot more momentum and you get that draft done. Now, here's the last little tip I'm gonna give you. Before we go into the comprehensive marketing and launch plan. For some of you, if you are the type of person, and we have a lot of authors like this, if you're the type of person that say, I know what I want to say in my book, but when I sit down at my laptop, it's just challenging to get it out. I have never been the strongest writer. I'm a great speaker. I am great on stage. I am great on a podcast. I am great over a coffee with a friend. I could talk my book all day long and just tell you what I want it to be about. For a lot of folks, if you'll follow the process that I just described about organizing your content, if you get your chapters defined, if you get each chapter as almost like a little mini talk and say, all right, here's the 10-minute riff that I have about that topic. I'm going to start with this story. I'm going to do this. For a lot of authors, a really good approach is actually speaking your book instead of typing your book. If you're a better speaker than a writer, don't be afraid to speak your book. You can just get your cell phone out. There's a million different dictation softwares that are out there, or apps that you can use where you can literally just speak your book, have it dictated, And then this is where you could actually leverage AI to help you in the process. I am not a fan of using AI to write your book. AI is a great tool to help edit your book, clean up your book, but keep it in your own voice. And if you've spoken it, you can literally put chunks of it into ChatGPT or whatever language software you like to do and say, hey, please clean up the syntax, make this flow a little better, remove redundancy, but maintain the original voice. And you'll be amazed that you just throw in a couple paragraphs and it comes back and it still sounds like you. It's still the same structure, still mostly the same words, but it'll make it more concise. It'll remove a lot of the rambling. It'll clean up some of your run on sentences. It'll make it flow a little bit better. And so, just that is the way a lot of authors can get it done in a single weekend. Speak your book, use artificial intelligence to help you with just cleaning it up a little bit. And then you can go through and do your own self edit, add in some things, clean up some additional things, eventually get it off into the hands of a talented editor that can then take your book from a 7 out of 10 to a 9 or a 10. And it is amazing how, for some authors, just speaking your book and unlocking that idea can get your content done so much faster. And then there's gonna be some of you that are a little more old school, like myself. I like sitting down at the laptop. I like banging it out, and it almost helps me organize my thoughts a little more if I'm typing them out. But for some of you, speaking your book could be a really, really good way to accelerate this process. Now, once you have your draft done, this is where we now need to turn our gaze towards how to build a comprehensive marketing and launch plan for our book so that we don't just have one of the 20 million books on Amazon that no one buys. And the reality is nowadays, it is the best time possible in this world to be a content creator. The barriers of entry have been removed. Anyone can publish a book. Anyone can launch a blog. Anyone can launch a YouTube channel. Anyone can launch a podcast. Anyone with enough ingenuity and good content and scrappiness can build a speaking career. There's never been a better time to be a content creator. And yet, one of the challenges of that is because the barriers have been removed. The barriers have been removed, which means there's tons of people launching books. There's tons of people trying to become an influencer. There's tons of people trying to become a speaker. There's tons of people doing these things. And so what happens is the top 1 or 2% rise to the top, and everything else just kind of gets washed out and is white noise. And so you really have to have a good comprehensive marketing and launch strategy to make sure your book actually lands. Otherwise, it just becomes family and friends. 68 people buy your book in the first month, and then you look up 6 months later and it's selling 1 copy a week, or maybe not even that. And so we want to make sure that we have a good launch strategy so that we can take advantage of all the hard work you put into bringing this book into the world. So we're going to talk about a couple different things. The first step to a successful book launch is having a cover that grabs attention. We are then going to talk about launch team and book promotion sites and how you can leverage those to get a nice pop of sales in those first 30 days to build momentum. And then finally, it's really important that you position your book for success. We're going to stay on this one for a moment, and then we're going to go back in time and talk about cover design. Positioning your book for success. This is one of the biggest mistakes I find a lot of authors make, is they try to go too wide and they try to do too many things. The reality is that the vast, vast, vast majority of books in today's world are bought on Amazon.com. Vast majority. And if you're a first-time author, it's going to be quite literally 95 to 99% or more. We have 6-figure authors we've worked with here at selfpublishing.com that quite literally make over $100,000 a year as an author, and their book is offered everywhere. It is on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Target.com, it's on all these places. We help them do that. We publish them wide. And yet, literally out of the $100,000 they make per year, they sell a total of maybe 30 books total, not on Amazon. So you really want to be thinking about your initial launch, your initial marketing through Amazon, through what is going to maximize sales through there, what is going to feed that algorithm, what is going to allow people to find me that are searching for books of a similar content. How can I make sure I stand out with my author page, with the way my book description is written, just all these things. You want to position your book for success first and foremost with Amazon, and everything else is just bonus. It's just the reality of the world we live in right now. And so if you've thought through that well and you've got a good strategy in place, and that is where you aim your efforts for your book launch, everything's going to go better. So position your book for success, but we got to circle back, and none of what I'm going to explain to you today works unless you have a cover that grabs attention. Everything else in marketing falls flat if your cover does not hit the mark. And so we're going to talk about a few key elements of cover design right now. The first thing you need if you are launching a nonfiction book, if you're launching a nonfiction book, this is so critical. You need to have a title and a subtitle that really speaks to the heart of your ideal target reader and tells them what this book is about. So many authors try to get way too cute with their title, with their subtitle, where people don't have any idea what it's about. And it might be a beautiful title. It might be very, just this amazing metaphor that only you understand, and until you explain it to somebody, that doesn't sell. You really want to make sure someone can see your book and say, "That's for me." So this is my book, The Politically Homeless Christian: How to Conquer Political Idolatry, Reject Polarization, and Recommit to God's Greatest Two Commandments. And we're not going to spend much time on my book today because it's not about my book. But this immediately tells someone, is this book for me or is it not? I'm sure some people watching this training that are saying to themselves, "Oh my gosh, I need to grab that. That is totally me. I have felt this way." I have had so many people reach out to me after I launched my book back in 2020 through my blog, through email, that said, "Aaron, I saw your title and you put into words what I've been feeling for the last 10 years. I felt politically homeless. There's aspects of each party I agree with. There's aspects of each party that completely turn me off. I feel politically homeless. Like, I wish I just had a political home that I could like just align with someone and feel comfortable and confident in everything they're doing." Um, Now here's the thing. Those people are my ideal target reader. That's why they feel that way. My book title and subtitle spoke to them. There's also tons of people in the world. There's people watching this training. They're like, "Yep, not for me." And that's great because my book's not for everybody, nor should your book be. Your book should not be for everybody. If you try to write a book for everyone, you end up reaching no one. You want to make sure that you are hyper specific with who is this book for, who is it not for, and make sure your title and your subtitle speak to the heart of the ideal target reader. Let's look at another example. This is Dr. Jonathan Su. This is one of our authors. Excuse me. Dr. Jonathan Su wrote a book called 6 Minute Fitness at 60 Plus: Simple Home Exercises to Reclaim Strength, Balance, and Energy in 15 Days. Great title, great subtitle. It immediately tells you, is this book for you? So if someone is going through Amazon and they're maybe 68 and their strength balance has been struggling a little bit, their energy levels have been dropping, they've been thinking about getting a gym membership, I just feel like, gosh, am I really going to do that? Is that for me? Maybe there's some insecurity built into that. And then they see this book and say, "Okay, well, I could commit 6 minutes a day at home. This is, hmm." And he has sold thousands of copies every single month for the last 6, 7 years. Makes six figures from his book. He launched a second book with this as well. Great title, great subtitle. A couple of other things you'll notice about both this book and the book I was showing you before is the title pops off the cover. It's in that upper third, upper half. It immediately jumps off. So you don't want to have such a busy image in your background and then your text overlaying it in such a way that it gets lost. You want to make sure that it's very clear. You can see the title immediately, because remember, most people are not picking up your book and looking at it in a store at Barnes & Noble. They are surfing on an iPhone on Amazon.com, and your cover is shrunk down to the size of a postage stamp. So you need to make sure that your title pops. You also want to make sure you have very clean design aesthetics, that right away, this book was professionally designed. Resist the urge to try to use cover design as a place to save money in the process. A lot of folks that do it yourself on the book front and just try to launch it on their own, you can certainly do that. A lot of times they have the brother-in-law who's a graphics designer, the sister who's really good with Canva, and or hey, I feel pretty good about AI combined with images, and I'm going to do my own cover. And then what happens, for whatever reason, maybe it's the font you chose, maybe it's the way it overlaid the image, maybe it's just something a lot about the margins on the outside, but something about it screams amateur. And it's not terrible, it's not bad. And yet what you'll find is that when a cover is designed by someone who does professional cover design, it's not that expensive. But if you spend a little bit of money on the professional, that this is what they do. They do cover designs for books. It just looks that little bit better. And there's something in your potential buyer's psyche that screams, this book is worth my time. This book belongs on the front table of a Barnes & Noble. This looks professional versus just looking like it was a DIY book. And if you're building your own personal brand, if you're trying to be a speaker, if you're trying to go out on stages, you want to make sure you look like a top 1%er. And so make sure that you're taking care with your cover design. I want to show you an example from the world of fiction. If any of you are considering writing fiction as opposed to nonfiction, This is one of our authors, Ashley Emma. She wrote an entire series, Undercover Amish, Covert Police Detective Unit Series, Book One. She was a USA Today bestselling author. She followed all the steps that we're talking about today in your book launch. Launched as a USA Today bestselling author. This is a great cover design for that Amish crime genre, which I had no idea Amish crime was even a genre before I started working at selfpublishing.com 5 years ago. There's so many niche genres that have these cult followings. Great cover design. She has built an entire author career. She supports her entire family based on just her fiction writing. And it starts with deep genre research. You need to understand, what do readers expect out of your genre? What are the color palettes? Do they typically, in your genre, is it usually a female protagonist versus a male protagonist on the cover? Or is it both? What kind of imagery does it evoke? You want to really be thinking about those types of things. What kind of fonts do they use? Because if your cover as a fiction author can hit those genre tropes, those genre expectations, you're going to sell so much better. So much better. Now, once we've done that, once we've nailed our cover design, now it's time that we create a launch team. And a launch team is a group of people that are committed to doing a few things: buying an early copy, which you always want to set your ebook at either 99 cents or free for that first couple of weeks to just drive as many early sales as possible. You can set your paperback and hardcover at whatever normal price you're going to charge. You don't have to discount during that launch period, because people that want to buy your paperback or hardcover, they're just going to buy it. But you want to make sure that buying your ebook has as low a barrier of entry as possible, and it also allows you to do some book promotion sites, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So you want to set that, low, either free or 99 cents. So they're going to buy a copy during your first launch week when it comes out, write an early review, help you get momentum. Reviews are what gives you credibility on Amazon. If your book has launched a year ago and it's still sitting there at 14 reviews, it's going to be really hard to do anything else in marketing because your book doesn't have credibility. Whereas if you launch and immediately within your first launch week, you've already got 50 reviews. And then within the first month, you've got 100. And then within the first year, you have 200. All of a sudden, now your book's got momentum. It's got credibility. If people find your book through hearing you on a podcast, if they find your book through ads that you're running on Amazon, if they find you through social media and they see your book has 182 reviews, you've got credibility. This is a legit book. And the best way to get those early reviews is building that launch team. And then finally, hopefully they like the book and are willing to promote it, share it with their friends. Now, what I found is if you ask everybody to do everything, that's going to be intimidating for some folks. Buying a copy, writing a review, promoting to your own audiences. And so what we like to teach is something called a 3-tiered launch, where you give people the opportunity to opt into the level of engagement they feel most comfortable with. So tier 1, these are people willing to buy a copy, write a review, promote. These are your superstars. We would love as many of these as possible on our launch team. But tier 2 are folks that say, gosh, Ashley, it sounds like an awesome book. Can't wait to support you in this launch. I'll definitely grab a copy during your launch week. I'd be happy to write a review for you. I know how important that is on Amazon. I'm not a huge promoter. I'm not active on social media. I don't know how much promoting I'll do, but I'll definitely buy a copy and write a review. That's great. That's awesome. We need a ton of early sales. We need a ton of early reviews to climb the rankings and to have credibility. And then you're also going to have tier 3. These are folks that say, hey, Ashley, sounds great. I'll definitely grab a copy. I don't want to overpromise. Life's crazy right now. It might take me a little bit to get to writing you a review. So I'll definitely grab a copy. And no promises in the review, but I'll try to get to it when I can. And that's okay. Because once again, during that first month, as many sales as you can get as possible is huge. This is what helps you climb the bestseller rankings. This is what allows you to have a book that is new and trending and hot, which allows you to book speaking engagements, book stages, do all these different things, to be able to put on your LinkedIn that you're now a #1 bestselling author in whatever your topic is. And so you want to have as many early sales as possible. So even if they're in tier 3, that is still a huge help. And so the way you want to build this launch team, social media is a fantastic tool for this. So if you have an email list, if you have a blog, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have any of those things, obviously utilize any tools you have at your disposal. Social media is a great one of those. So whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, wherever you have a large audience or a lot of connections, share it. And I always like to do a 2-step approach. The first step is a cover vote. So get your cover down to a final 2 or 3 iterations. These are my final choices I'm deciding between. You can see on the left, I did a cover vote and I was asking, hey, I've said, friends, fun announcement and a request for help. I've been working on a book that is going to be released in mid-September. I would love feedback on which cover you like better. Please vote if you're willing. What you find is that people love to vote on things. People love voting on things. And all the social media algorithms the way they pretty much work, especially Facebook, is you're only seeing a certain percentage of things. So if you have 800 friends on Facebook that you've acquired over the last however many years, and a lot of them you barely even know, only a small percentage of those are ever seeing your content. So if you are posting about the barbecue with family over or the 4th of July, maybe 40, 50, 60 people are seeing that. Now what happens is if those 40, 50, 60 people are liking it, commenting on it, that's telling Facebook, "Oh, this one's interesting to people." And all of these social media platforms are in the business of keeping you on their platform longer. So if other people are finding this interesting, they think more people might find it interesting, so they're going to put it in more feeds. So all of a sudden that 40, 50, 60 becomes, oh, let's throw it in another 100 of Aaron's followers. And now those people are commenting and liking. And they're like, this one's got some virality to it. Let's put it in another 100. And so now all of a sudden what happens is most of your connections are now seeing this when you do a cover vote. The other thing it does, because of the fact that if you engage with someone, any of their content, that social media platform is now going to show you all of their content for the next 30, 60 days because you've risen your hand and said, I'm interested in this person. Their content's interesting to me. I commented, I engaged, I didn't just keep scrolling. And so now all of a sudden, when you actually do your launch team request, what you can see on the right here, this video, the vast majority of my connections are now going to see it because I did a two-step approach. And now what I did was a couple marketing images with my final book cover. I did a short video, about 2 minutes long. And in that video, I did a couple things. I shared what my book was about for real brief, just the elevator pitch, 30, 45 seconds. And then I shared about a minute and a half of the 3-tiered launch, what I just shared with you. And then at the end, just said, hey, if you're a 1, drop a 1 in the comments. If you're a 2, drop a 2. If you're a 3, drop a 3. And regardless of whether you're 1, 2, or 3, like I so appreciate your support. And I ended up building about a 200-person launch team ahead of my launch. And it made a huge difference of driving early sales, early promoters, early reviews. Makes a huge difference. Now, you want to not simply rely on your launch team for early sales. You don't want to purely rely on your launch team for early sales. That's a great tool, but you also want to layer on something called book promotion sites. So book promotion sites, there's over 100 of these on the internet that have amassed really large email lists. And these are folks that have opted in to be contacted by these book promotion sites when there are free or reduced priced ebooks in specific genres or on specific topics. If you end up working directly with selfpublishing.com on your project, we'll help you with all this. You know, we've got a curated list of ones that have been highest converting in different genres, and your coach will help you with which ones should you leverage. If you're doing this on your own, if you Google best book promotion sites on the internet, you'll find some really good blogs that have tons of them listed. And then you'll just kind of have to do the homework of figuring out, based on my genre, which one should I look at, think about cost, all that. I would encourage you to do about 8 to 10 book promotion sites on your book during that first launch month. Stagger them every few days because if you can stack those people that do not know you along with those book promotion sites, along with your launch team, that's what'll give you a nice steady stream of sales over those first 30 days so that you not only have a pop those first 2 days when a bunch of family and friends are buying your book, but you also have a longer tail and shows Amazon you have staying power. And now you naturally are just showing up at the top of bestseller rankings. You're just showing up when people search for it. And really good things happen. So what happens when you do this? What happens when you do this? For me, this was so fun. I'm always someone that is a little bit nervous of when I hear something, if Ashley's sharing some great tips with you about something, I'm always like, oh, that's such good knowledge, but will it work for me? And I think that's just human nature. It's like, will this work for me? I know it's worked for other people. Will this work for me? It was really fun. Like I was just trying to be as coachable as I could working with Scott, my coach. And when my book launched, I was the #1 bestseller in psychology and Christianity. I held that #1 spot. This is during my launch week. For almost the entire first month that the book was out there. It was #1 in social policy. It was #1 in Christian leadership. This one was really surreal for me because I've read so many of John Maxwell's books. And so seeing my book next to John Maxwell's books on a top bestseller ranking was just really surreal. It was #1 bestseller in social issues in Christianity as well as Christian evangelism. So it was #1 in quite a few different categories during that launch month. Sold over 1,000 copies in that very first month. And in the first 3 weeks, I was able to book engagements with the Christian Television Network, iHeartRadio, Family Life Radio, 4 different podcasts, spoke at one megachurch. And since then, over the last several years, I've gotten the privilege of speaking at numerous conferences, been approached by newspapers randomly that at this point, I don't have to go out and search for these opportunities. I still do that some as well. So I don't want to, it never gets to the spot where it's purely passive. But I also have passive opportunities that just hit my inbox. But the reason why I'm highlighting these ones right here is I booked all of those in the first 3 weeks after the launch. First 3 weeks after the launch, got some pretty heavy hitters. And so I want to talk to you about in this next section of how do you do that? How do you maximize the momentum you have after your best-selling launch so that you can get the results you want on the back end? And so that's going to be lesson number 3 is how do we leverage that book launch to grow your audience, grow your income, grow your opportunities in the back? And so there's a really important piece with your book is it requires consistent promotion. I think there is a certain level of people expecting that you hear this word passive income thrown out a lot in our society, whether it's build a course, get passive income, write a book, get passive income, like everyone, do real estate, get passive income. For any of you that have ever purchased real estate, you realize that that is a very active passive income. I have had lots of rentals over the years, and I would say that it is a very active passive income. If you do a course and you are never updating your course, you're never making the content new and fresh, and you just let it stagnate, within 6 months, it just becomes no income because no one wants your out-of-date course. And so there's a certain level of engagement you need to have for your passive income. Now, can something be more passive than not? Absolutely. And a book is one of those things. But it does require consistent promotion. If you are not consistently promoting your book, eventually it will fall off. That's just how it works. That's just the content cycle in today's world. And that goes for anything. And so there's really 3 pillars of long-term book marketing that you need to take care of. And depending on your topic and your genre, some of these are going to be more important than others. All right. So one is digital ads. Every single person should leverage digital ads when marketing your book. This will be a combination of Amazon ads, social media ads. There's a platform called BookBub that is very important for authors to learn and get to know and utilize. Digital ads are what just can keep just day in, day out sales coming in, just consistently, where you don't just fall off a cliff after a certain amount of time. Social media. Now, social media, which platforms to use and how important it is to be active on social media will vary based on your topic. There's some topics where it's critical that you're active on social media. There's some topics where it's less important. And figuring out, okay, what is required for me goes a long way. And then finally, PR opportunities and speaking engagements. And we're going to dive deeper into this one because obviously I know a lot of the folks that are watching this training that's the goal is to build a speaking career. And there is nothing better you can do for your speaking career than launch a best-selling book. Go to any conference and just look at all the headliners. And the one thing you're going to see in common is almost every single one of them has a best-selling book. Almost every single one of them. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, the book preceded the notoriety, not the other way around. There are some exceptions. There are some people that got notoriety and then launched a book. For a lot of people, they were getting some traction, gained some traction, launched the book, and then they took off. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about this. But with all of these, PR, ads, speaking opportunities, you need to be prepared to strike while the iron is hot. There is never a better time to do marketing than while your book is new and trending and hot. There is no better time to do marketing. And then you can maintain the momentum. The mistake that a lot of people make is they have a decent launch. But they didn't really come in with a strategy to leverage that on the back end. And so then all of a sudden they look up 2 months later and their book is down to 0 and it's selling almost no copies. And then that's the time where the author says to themselves, man, I should probably do some marketing. And the hard part is everything now became harder because while your book is no longer on that bestseller list, while your book is no longer in the top 10 of different categories, while your book doesn't have that beautiful orange banner that says #1 new release next to it, all of your ads convert less. All of your social media posts convert less. Your outreach to people that are running conferences and retreats, your outreach to podcast hosts converts less as compared to if I'm reaching out to a podcast host while my book is showing up next to John Maxwell's. It's a lot easier to book that podcast. If I'm reaching out to a stage I want to speak at while my book is sitting next to John Maxwell's, it's a lot easier to book that stage. And so you need to be prepared to strike while the iron is hot, while your book is new and trending and hot. Everything, I like to compare this to an airplane taking off. You have to get a certain velocity and then you can take off. And a lot of times people make the mistake of their launch week, their launch month. They're getting some velocity and then it peters to a stop. And then the author tries to do marketing and you can't take off without reaching that critical velocity ahead of time. So as we talk about the last one, landing speaking opportunities, there's 3 critical steps that you want to think about. First is you need to plan ahead. So you want to do this before your book launches, which is why I'm talking to you about this now, because I believe that even if you haven't even written a word of your book yet, even if you're so early in the process and you say, Aaron, this is a little bit ahead of where I'm at in the process, for you to understand the full process of what this will look like to write your book, to launch your book, to market your book on the back end, it makes it so much more doable to even take that first step. And it's going to allow you to actually plan ahead in such a way where you can do this intelligently. Because a lot of people are so fixated on just get the book done, get the book done, get the book done. They neglect to do anything with launching, anything with marketing, and then their book's out there, but it's not selling. And so you need to plan ahead. And you need to ask yourself, like, who already has my audience? Who already has my audience? What is my ideal target reader? What conferences are they attending? What blogs are they reading? What podcasts do they listen to? What news shows, television networks do they watch? So you want to identify opportunities to share your audience. You then want to craft your hook. How can you add value for them? If this podcast host has you on, what's going to be that engaging conversation that you're going to have? And then finally, you got to maximize your best-selling launch. So I encourage folks, do this research ahead of time. Before my book even launched, I had drafted about 50 emails to different podcasts that I wanted to appear on. And then I just sat there during my launch week waiting for that number one bestseller, that beautiful orange banner on Amazon to pop up. And as soon as that orange banner was there, I pressed send on a bunch of emails because I knew at that moment, if that podcast host looked me up, they were going to see my book. They were going to see it was a number one bestseller. And immediately I was going to have credibility and they were probably going to want to have me on. So you need to be prepared to maximize your best-selling launch. I want to walk you through a great email. This is something that if you've done a good job with your launch, you've got momentum, and this goes not just for this type of email, but just email copywriting in general. If you're trying to land opportunities, if you're trying to land podcasts, if you're trying to land stages, anything like this, you want to keep emails short and concise and punchy in today's world. People don't want to read for 6 minutes in an email. And in my opinion, this is a great template to follow, is just one sentence praising them, what you like about their podcast, what you've appreciated about their conference in the past if you attended it, or good things you've heard about it from others. One sentence establishing your credibility, why they should consider having you. A one sentence hook, what's the value you're going to add, what's the engaging topic you guys could dive into. One sentence to create scarcity. Hey, my time is valuable as well. And then a one sentence simple ask. So what does this all look like when put together? What does this all look like when put together? I'm going to show you an actual real email from when I was doing outreach and see how this all comes together. Hi, James. I just wanted to reach out because I've really been enjoying your podcast recently. I love the diverse range of topics you address in such an authentic way. One sentence praising them. I recently launched a book, The Politically Homeless Christian, that's currently the number one bestseller in Christian leadership. So one sentence establishing my credibility. I thought we could potentially have an engaging conversation about the intermingling of politics and faith in today's world. One sentence hook. That's still relevant today. It's a very relevant topic. Things have been pretty hectic around the book launch with various appearances, but I'm sure we can find 5 minutes to connect and compare calendars. So one sense to create scarcity. Hey, it's kind of busy around the book launch, but I'm sure we can, find a time. And then here's the simple ask. Do you handle all of your scheduling or would that be someone else? Do you handle all of your scheduling or would that be someone else? And you'd be amazed how just that simple, instead of saying, so what do you think? Could I come on? It's just asking like, hey, do you handle all of your scheduling or would that be someone else? It's a very laid back ask. And it will get such a good response rate where what you find is people respond back and it's one of a couple things. Either James responds back and says, yep, I handle all my own booking. Currently, we've got guests for the next 3 weeks, but we could probably slot you in, yada, yada, yada. Or you're CC'd on an email and it's like, Ed, please see below. I'll let you take it from here. And Ed just got the green light to book you. And so just that simple ask makes it very non-threatening, very approachable, and you'll get a really good response rate. I want to show you a couple of authors we work with that have done this at such a high level. Hayden Crabtree was one of our authors that was just incredibly coachable, executed his book launch exactly the way we coach it. Then went and did PR outreach. And we always encourage people, start small. Start small. Start with like those B and C level opportunities. Because once you've done a few, now you've got more credibility. You can go from the C level opportunity to the B level opportunity to the A level opportunity. And Hayden did an incredible job of this. He started on smaller podcasts. Eventually, he was getting up onto big name podcasts. Maybe you guys know Bigger Pockets is a real estate podcast. He wrote a book called Skip the Flip. He was featured on podcasts with big names like Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki. He was averaging about $2,000 to $3,000 a month in book royalties during that first year after his launch. But for him, he wanted to leverage that credibility into building an online offering. He wanted to have a course, a mastermind, some group coaching calls. So he built a $4,000 offer that people could purchase, sold over 80 of them in that first year. I mean, so just knocked it out of the park. And this is one of the things I always try to help aspiring authors realize, that there is the book royalty component, but much bigger than that is what your book does for you. whether that is to grow a speaking career, whether that is to grow a personal brand, whether that is to do a high ticket offer that's $2,000, $3,000, $10,000. We've had authors we work with that have launched $20,000, $30,000 offers on the back of the book because they had so much credibility from their book. And so there's so much you can do once you have credibility as an author and you've got that audience that's built in. Here's another great example. Susie Harder, she's one of my favorites. She actually did a children's book that was it was called Where's My House? And it was all about the California wildfires back in 2020, 2021. It's hard to spend so many wildfires, unfortunately, in California over the years. And all donated all the proceeds from the book. That first book too there. But then she went and built a business in the back of it. She launched a book called Author, or a business called Authorable, where they're working with schools all over the country, all over the world. And she's worked with hundreds of schools at this point, landed a ton of amazing PR and speaking opportunities featuring the business. I mean, she was being featured on like television networks, podcasts, radio appearances all over, speaking from stages. And it was all about leveraging that early momentum surrounding the launch. So the truth I always try to convey to authors is you don't need to spend a ton of money on marketing. You do need to learn marketing. And this is the biggest shift that I think a lot of folks have to make in their author career, because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to spend $2,000, $3,000 a month on a publicist. I'm gonna have to spend $500 a month on someone to manage my Amazon ads. I need a social media manager for $200 a month, $300 a month, $500 a month. And there are authors that do that. I mean, there are authors that legitimately spend $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 a month just to market their book, and not always getting great results doing it. Versus if you just learn marketing, and then all of a sudden you realize researching podcasts is actually quite straightforward. If you have a good email template, doing outreach doesn't take that many hours. If you've got a good hook, if you understand your audience, if you understand your ideal target reader and your ideal target client or your ideal target conference you'd like to speak at, or if you really understand that, what you start to realize is I can actually do this on my own in not that many hours a week. And you eventually get to a spot where you can do it almost on autopilot because you just have the right systems built. We have so many of our authors that follow the path that we like to teach, which is learn, do, delegate, automate. Like first you got to learn it and then you got to do it. It's like, all right, I got to learn how to do this research, understand like how do I find good podcasts? How do I find good conferences to speak at? How do I find good retreats? How do I find good clients? And then eventually you get to the spot where once you've learned it and done it, is then you can delegate it. Then you could hire a VA. You know, there's a lot of low cost VAs you could work with. You say, hey, here's exactly how to research good podcast opportunities, and then you can reach out as my manager, and all of a sudden you can do that. But until you learn it and do it first, it's very, very hard to delegate, and it's very hard to know if you hire someone, are they even doing a good job? So I always encourage folks, learn marketing. It doesn't have to be from us, but learning marketing is going to make you so much more effective as an author, as a speaker, as a business owner. And then eventually you can delegate and in some cases automate. So I know we've talked about a lot today. We talked about how to finish your rough draft in less than a month, maybe as short as a weekend. We talked about how to build a comprehensive marketing and launch plan to make sure your book is actually getting out there in front of your ideal target readers, and then how to eventually leverage your book to grow your audience on the back end. And this is the spot where I hope that today's been helpful. If you carved out the time to watch this entire training, I hope that it's action oriented, that you can actually take these ideas and run with them and get some momentum going for your book, because it really is the single biggest thing you can do in today's influencer world to help you grow your own brand, grow a speaking career, grow a business, is to launch a best-selling book. So I hope this has been helpful. And a lot of people at the end of these trainings will say, this sounds great. And I simultaneously feel like if I tried to execute all this on my own, I feel like I would probably miss some steps. And so could you guys help? Like I would love to actually have a coach. I'd love to work with a professional that this is what they do. And so I'm going to briefly tell you just for about a minute of what we do here at selfpublishing.com. And then we're going to give you opportunity if you would like to speak with a member of our team. We'd love to go in more depth and detail, hear about your book, hear about your business, hear about what you're trying to build on the back end, and see if there's any ways that we can best support you, whether it is by working directly in one of our programs with a coach, or if it's just through some of our free resources that we can make available for you. So selfpublishing.com briefly. At this point, we've been around for over 10 years. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary back in February. So this is not something that just started up 18 months ago and we're hoping it'll make it. We've worked with, at this point, over 8,000 authors in 91 countries all over the world. And the biggest group of authors we work with are folks that are building speaking careers, building businesses, building content. Like just those are some of the folks that we serve the most. And so what we do is we actually partner up all of our authors with a personal coach. We have an online platform. So there's educational tools and resources and templates you can leverage. And then you also have a one-on-one personal coach guiding you for an entire year throughout this process. During that year, not only do you have the one-on-one coaching sessions that you schedule, you actually have live office hours and group coaching calls 5 days a week. So even in between, let's say you still were, a couple weeks out from your next coaching session that you had booked with your one-on-one coach, you can just pop in as if it was professor office hours 5 days a week to get quick questions answered, bounce around ideas. If you're getting stuck in the writing process and you want some feedback, or if it's coming up to your launch and you want to make sure that you've dotted your I's, crossed your T's, we have live office hours 5 days a week. We want to make sure that you're always supported by a live human being throughout every step of your journey here. And then we provide all the services of a traditional publishing house, but with you as the publisher. Our goal is to give you the same services, if not better, than a traditional publishing house, but with the freedom and flexibility that comes with self-publishing, which a lot of authors don't appreciate until they don't have it. A lot of authors, the first time they publish, will go through a traditional publishing house or something called like a hybrid publisher, where it's like smaller publishers that maybe you spend $5,000, $10,000, they publish your book. But then what happens is they control the pricing. They control what keywords and categories you select on Amazon. They control what promotions you can run. And all of a sudden, you find a lot of the things I talked about today, you actually can't even do. Like, you can't even do book promotion sites when you work with a traditional publisher because you need to be able to price it a certain way. You need to be able to do it for a certain time period. And that means that you need control over your Amazon back office. And so, if you don't have that control, it becomes very hard to market your book effectively. So, our goal is to give you all the services of traditional publishing house, but with you as the publisher, so you maintain 100% of the rights to your book. You get paid 100% of the royalties. So that's what selfpublishing.com does. What we're going to do over the next couple of days, we've actually set aside time for you to speak with one of our strategists to dissect your idea. You can share a little bit of what you think you would write about, how it would work into the bigger project that you're working on, and where you feel you need the most support. On those, we're going to really help you craft a step-by-step plan of how to take action on what you learned about today, regardless of whether it's with us. Now, obviously, our hope is that we find enough folks that come from this training that say, you know what, if you guys can provide that much value, hopefully you found today valuable in an hour. I'd love to see what you can do with an entire year. And we would love to come alongside you. All of our coaches are best-selling authors themselves, so you'd be in very good hands. But if all we provide is a certain amount of knowledge, we're okay with that as well. Our CEO has covered the cost of that initial consultation. So if today was valuable, I'm going to make a bold promise that one-on-one hour that you can spend with one of our strategists will be even that much more valuable because you'll be able to dissect your actual book, your own goals, where you're at in the process, and help craft a plan to help you get there. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to drop into the chat. We have a link. We have a link here. So this is selfpublishing.com/Ashley. So this is a special link put together just for folks attending this training. If you click there, you're going to see a calendar come up with times available over the next couple of days. I would encourage you to find the one that's nearest to right now while this is all still fresh. If there's time later this afternoon that'll work well for you, if there's time tomorrow that'll work well for you, we would love to connect with one of our publishing strategists. We have an amazing team of just very service-minded strategists. They are folks that love to really get in the trenches with aspiring authors and figure out, all right, what would be the quickest path to success for this person? How can we help them remove barriers that could get in the way? And so if you have not had a chance to do this already, I know some of you actually booked calls from the initial webinar. I think that when I put the link in there, thank you so much, Ashley. I put it in and it went just to hosts and panelists. I thought it was going to everybody. My fault.
No problem.
Yeah, Donna. If you would, that you should see it now. Go ahead and click on that, and yeah, you'll see links to different times. I would encourage you to book one as close to now as possible, and then we'd love to serve you well on those calls.
So first and foremost, I want to thank you so much, Erin, for your time. It's actually pretty interesting because I have written a book before and I wish I had known all of the things that you just said. I'm in the process of writing my second book and I felt like this was a little bit of a therapy session
Hmm.
for me because I started it 3 years ago. So I can't thank you enough. I mean, the information you provided was so incredible for anyone who has not written a book, or even if someone who has written a book previously. The information that you have is so on point, and I can see why people love to work with you guys because not only is it information that some of it I'm guessing is evergreen because some of it I should have applied years ago with my first book, but some of it is more recent in nature when you're speaking about the whole marketing campaign aspect. And obviously, that's critical because you've just done all of this work. You've spent all of this time, you've sacrificed maybe spending time with family and friends to execute your book. You don't want it to just fall flat. So, I can't get over how encompassing your program is because every other program I've ever looked into, it's like, we'll teach you how to get your book started, we'll provide editorial services for you, and then you're on your own. You have to find someone to do the book design cover, you have to find someone to launch your book. And I really think that you offer a very encompassing approach to helping people get their books off the ground and in the right hands successfully and utilizing it for other purposes. So, thank you so much. I'm going to open it up quickly. I don't know if we have any questions here. If you could put it in the chat, if anyone has any questions. This recording will be available. I will be sending it out shortly after this presentation, and you'll be able to click and book directly with Aaron and his team. And if you are watching the recording, have any additional questions, and it's after the 48 hours, I'm sure Aaron and his team will open up additional availability to
Yeah,
answer
absolutely.
questions for you. But I can't thank you enough, Aaron. This has just been, I mean, truly blown away. It's been phenomenal. There's, I think some folks are having a little bit of issues with booking a time. It's not allowing them to book.
Hmm. Keishu, what error are you getting when I'll drop in here. If you're having any difficulty, I'm not sure why you would be. If you want to send me, if you're getting an error on there, here is my personal email. You can drop an email to me, just with your name and your phone number, and I'll have a member of our team reach out directly to get you scheduled on a time. But that's extremely strange if 'cause we've been having calls booked throughout, so I see some of these piping in. You can always try refreshing the page every once in a while because we have a lot of folks throughout. We talk to a lot of authors every single week. Every once in a while, someone will start to book a time, and someone booked a time that you booked at the exact same time. You get an error message. Sometimes you just refresh the page. You might be able to get one there. But if that doesn't work, then just shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to get you booked.
So I don't see any questions, but I'm sure Aaron and his team are happy to answer questions when you book a call. Thank you again, Aaron. I can't thank you enough. For everyone who's joined the presentation, if you haven't registered a free account on Conference Connect, I highly advise you to do so because one of the incredible features about having your own speaker or event page is you can sell your books directly, and we do not take any commission from you. We have an Amazon affiliate set up, and it does not impact your royalties of selling your book. So with that, I will thank everyone again, and I hope you'll join for the next webinar series, which is 2 weeks from today. And we will be having a presentation on speaking. So this is kind of the groundwork of getting yourself the credibility you need. And then we're going to transition into landing speeches and how to cultivate that kick-ass keynote speech that everyone wants to have. So thank you again for prioritizing time, joining us today. And thank you so much again, Aaron. Really appreciated it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. Look forward to connecting with a bunch of you. Bye now.
Bye.